guess the way I'd like to start, this is sort of a casual thing in the sense that we'll go back and forth. We were just talking on the way over about the words of things that meant the most to us. And, it's an interesting relationship that I had with Dana, something that is, I think, a unique function of the times that we live in. There are writers who you read who you come to feel as if you know. And, that's a very common occurrence. And then, thanks to the internet, you get to know writers that you admire. And that was the case with Dana. And the place where I'd like to start actually is so one of the later things that he wrote. And it's a piece he wrote in April of this year. And one of the things that I felt Dana got about being a Mets fan was he got it right. The Mets were a conduit to family. And you couldn't separate the two. The Mets were family and vice versa, in the sense that your family were the people you shared baseball with. You can believe, it was called. It would be too much to say that you've got to believe, but it is no longer an absurd proposition. I believe. Wouldn't it be something in this of all years? I know it was the Nationals and the Astros. I know we have to face more formidable teams. But this is why I say I believe. I neither know nor expect. Faith is what it is. But in this case, we also have some empirical reason for faith. We have what sure looks like a productive lineup, a reliable starting pitching staff, and reliable relievers. Wouldn't it be great if the people who dumped on them in the press when they were 5-13 were to not merely say that the Mets have surprised them? Wouldn't it be great if they admitted that they were foolish to bury the Mets on the basis of 1/10 of the season, that they were craven and cynical, making a story that wasn't a story because they had to try to sell newspapers? That's as likely to happen as Donald Trump is likely to admit that he was a cynical and stupid fool for trying to exploit the non-story of Obama's birth certificate.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Greg Prince. Run a blog called Faith and Fear in Flushing, which is how I came to meet Dana. The first thing I wanted to share, just to me, this is a great example of Dana Brand in action, taking you to Shea Stadium, the opening of a season, the 2007 season, arguably the best moment to start a season since 1980. I won't even say 1987, because then Dwight Gooden was in drug rehab. So the Mets had just won the Eastern Division the year before. They came within of going to the World Series, and we were all just so high on them before we knew anything that would go wrong. And Dana takes us there, the second to last home opener, this is called. It's 10:15 a.m. on April 9th, 2007. It's a beautiful morning with that bright Queens morning sunlight that seems just off the ocean. I get my first glimpse of Shea from the Whitestone Expressway. It is so big, so permanent looking, like the Roman Colosseum. And it won't be there 2 years from now when I'm driving on the same road. I will have to summon its bulk in my imagination. How can something as big as this disappear? I get off my usual Northern Boulevard exit, wondering what the parking situation is going to be. I see the cranes right up against Shea. I see why they're called cranes. They have the same sloping grace as the birds. They seem etched against the morning sky. I follow the signs which take me to the lot on the shore of Flushing Bay. The lot is filled with bundled people hopping from foot to foot, holding beers, eating hamburgers, standing in clusters of friends and relatives. It is 3 hours before the game. I park somewhere I won't have to worry about running over a hibachi. I get out of my car and walk toward the passageway under the expressway. I enjoy the smells of the burgers, dogs, and thick sausages. I enjoy all of these happy people in the windy cold. I too love the names and numbers they wear on their backs. I love the smell of their grilling meat. On the shore of the bay, I see the futuristic bus shelters left over from the 1964-1965 World's Fair. They're so beautiful. They look like white birds of the future poised to take flight. In 1964, nobody paid much attention to them. Nobody pays any attention to them now. But they have outlasted the fair, and now they will outlast Shea. I wonder how many people walking past them even know what they are. When I pass under the expressway, I'm near Gate A. I get as close as I can to the walled-in construction site. They are working today. Nothing stops, not even out of respect. I see towers built out of slabs of concrete. Their tops are secured with orange metal beams. There are yellow scaffolds and wooden railings. Slowly and carefully, like dinosaur robots, the big cranes feed things to men on the tops of the towers. Along the rim of Shea, I see and hear the wheezing trailers. I see the park news vans with their big dishes. There are the ambulances at the ready, the traffic barriers soaked in deepest Mets blue. There is the 7 train snaking along its elevated tracks. There is Mr. Met posing for pictures with fans. He swings his arms with that genial swagger he always has. He's accompanied by a group of young people in Pepsi t-shirts with their names on the back. Are they his handlers, his bodyguards, his entourage? I walk right down to the field and sit in a cushioned seat from which I can see the Mets general manager, Omar Minaya, working the crowd. The man is so cool. He's so handsome and charismatic. He looks as pleased to be here as Mr. Met. People are as happy to see him as they are to see Mr. Met. He's as famous as Mr. Met, but he offers very different impressions. Mr. Met lets you know that you will always be a Mets fan, that you have no choice, that you are a simple being. Omar suggests to you that the people who are in charge of the show know what they are doing. The dumb loyalty you've always had to Mr. Met is going to be rewarded. Batting practice is finally over, and it is time to leave this portion of the stadium where I never sit, where there are plaques with names on seats that make you feel as if you're in a church or a cemetery. I go up to the loge and see the big new wall of computer-faked pictures of Citi Field. I see a mysterious little clubhouse labeled Citi Field, with a doorman and a big leather sofa and flat screens and buffet tables. I go to Section 9, hoping to get my usual kosher hot dog with sauerkraut in my knish. And standing in the empty space, I smack my forehead, remembering it's still Passover. So I get some Nathan's Franks that taste nothing like the Nathan's Franks I remember from the Coney Island of my childhood. They're no knishes, and you can't even get sauerkraut to put on your hot dog. Why is the food so lousy at Shea, in the greatest food city in the world? It had better be different in that new little yuppie stadium they're building. The opening day ceremonies begin as the Copenhagen Lindenhurst High School marching band, looking like toy soldiers, start coming out of the center field fence. They play what we can recognize way high up as Meet the Mets and Take Me Out to the Ball Game. And so we clap and cheer in appreciation. When they're done, some Mets sprint into center field, their uniforms white and bright against the green waffle pattern of the grass. Then Howie Rose in a suit behind home plate and up on the diamond vision starts announcing the Phillies. We lustily boo their video coordinator and their assistant clubhouse manager until we realize that we need to start conserving our boos for the real Phillies, who actually seem to enjoy the boos we finally give them and doff their caps to us. Then we cheer wildly for the Mets personnel with a bit of hesitation of the visiting clubhouse manager. Howard Johnson, our old third baseman who's just been hired as a coach, gets a hearty welcome back, and everything that the sound system says about the real Mets is drowned in a continuous cascade of cheering.
The next piece that I have is called the curveball. I think we all know which curveball I'm referring to. In 2006, the Mets won 97 games and their first division title in 19 years. They swept the Dodgers in the first round of the playoffs. They went into the National League Championship Series as heavy favorites. But then, after a couple of bullpen collapses and a horrific 5-run first third of an inning from Steve Traxel, a veteran pitcher fighting to save his marriage, the inferior Cardinals had the superior Mets on the ropes, with 2 games to play in New York. I still believed in my team. And after seeing the 6th game at Shea with my own eyes, having felt the upper deck bounce as I stood on it with tens of thousands of screaming people, I thought that the Mets would pull it out. By the time we reached the 9th inning of the 7th game, Andy Chavez's catch, perhaps the greatest Mets catch ever, had saved us. Oliver Perez had also saved us, giving up only 1 run in the 7 innings he pitched. I trusted Aaron Heilman, who came in to pitch the 8th, because I had every reason to. He had a terrific year in 2006. And then Yadier Molina hit a 2-run homer off Heilman in the top of the 9th. Still, I believed that it was 1986 and not 1988. The Mets loaded the bases in the 9th with 1 out, and 2 fine hitters, Cliff Floyd and Carlos Beltran, were ready to come to the plate to give us a Bobby Thompson moment. Hope was alive until the last fraction of a second, when the curveball dropped and everything suddenly and finally took the form it would always have. I wouldn't say personified all Mets fans or most Mets fans necessarily, but he was he got it right. You know, he knew what it was to be a Mets fan and had the tools at his disposal, like a great baseball player, to explain exactly what he felt and to have that love of family, but also to be able to use words like few others can, to be able to tell us exactly how he was feeling as he did. And that doesn't come along very